Okay, so welcome to the before last session. This is going to be about music festivals, and we are going to have Eric Wagliardo from Pool. Please welcome him.
How's it going, guys? So, yeah, my name is Eric, and I'm very excited to come up here and hopefully share some interesting stories with you guys from the work we've been doing at Coachella, as well as outside of Coachella at other musical events. There's going to be a bit of a stream of consciousness, so I tried to structure the talk, but I want to take you guys on a journey and hopefully tell you guys a love story in the end. So I really wanted to ask and pose a question to the audience and to myself about what drives innovation. Like, what is pushing the industry forward? And I try to use the next 20 minutes to walk through why I think festivals are going to be a very integral part of the next generation's coming of age, and why that's going to be important for emergent technologies. But first, I think the real reason I was invited to talk today is because we have some shiny toys to share with you guys. So I'm going to pause on those bigger picture thoughts and just share with you guys a lot of the work that I've been doing to bring a lot of virtual production techniques from Hollywood studios and deploy them at music festivals. And so I think the work that we started last year with Coachella was really, I think, the first shot across the bow of what I think is, and what I think also we think is going to be really a beginning of a whole new generation of concert experiences and visuals. And so for Flume last year, we did 4 moments where we added augmented visuals to the live stream. So this was not a mobile experience. This was a high-end, very processor-intensive special effects process. It was very much leaning on Unreal Engine and implementing that and integrating that into our broadcast pipeline. So this was a big lift that took a lot of work, but we didn't want to sit still, and we didn't want to think about this as just a gimmick or just a one-off surprise and delight moment. So this year, very recently, we came back and we wanted to scale up, and we wanted to provide AR as a platform or a tool or a canvas for any artist to express themselves. So to think about the LED screens and to think about staging lights and lasers as kind of a de facto toolkit for any artist to use. And then now to use AR or XR as a whole new canvas for expression for artists. So this was a very, very fun exercise for us to bring special effects to Bad Bunny's show. And so we did 3 songs during his set. And we also did this moment with the Gorillas. And this is in partnership with Nexus Studios. So as part of the AR program, we are bringing infrastructure out to the desert and then allowing artists to ramp up and tell the story they want to tell. So Nexus Studios did an amazing job on these character animations. So if you were sitting at home watching the show in the middle of the set, the camera would pan up. And this is a really fun moment for me because I'm also a Gorillaz fan. I've been listening to them for a very long time. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's about 6 minutes long. So if you want to pop onto YouTube, you guys can watch that. For me, this is a fun moment. And just for good measure, we also did an intro moment for Blackpink and shot some commercials or some bumpers. So I think this is something that we plan to expand upon in the future. So I'll come back to that. And in addition to that, we launched Coachella Island. So I worked with the Coachella innovation team and in partnership with Fortnite to bring a Coachella experience into Fortnite. And so this was a very, very fun and exciting project for me because I'm also a gamer. But I think this starts to shed some light on what I think is going to be a future of adoption and innovation. So I really want to now take you guys on a little journey into why I think these things are interesting and important, and how we can start to use them to leverage to drive innovation. And I have to click twice on each one of these, so I'll have to remind myself. So I think what I want to argue is that technological advancement has outpaced market needs. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of virtual worlds that are not trafficked or don't have communities. Is I think that technology has been outpacing the rate of adoption, or even just the need. Like, what do people want? And is technology providing those needs and wants to them? And so I would also say that necessity is no longer the mother of invention. That we now have all these extra tools that don't have a need necessarily. And we need to start to think about how do we create new markets and create new needs. And so I think that's the journey I want to take you guys on right now. And I think this also starts to get into, I think, a question that we've all been asking ourselves for probably 3 years now is, after we've figured out, like, what is the metaverse, and then we have to ask ourselves, do people actually want it? And so I think we're I think we're on a nascent moment where the technology is starting to reach a mainstream audience. And I think that's what we're trying to do with the festivals. And maybe people just don't know that they need or want these things yet. So I think a question that I think maybe even more important than that is, what does the next generation want? And so I think if we want to start looking at scaling up and getting adoption, it's really about getting into the younger audience's heads and allowing them to start to form new behaviors around these technologies. So I think music festivals form a bridge to that new generation. And I think we're in a very special time where these behaviors haven't been locked in yet. Like, young people are still plastic and still interested in learning and adopting and growing. And so I think they seek out these new experiences and behaviors. So something I've been hearing a lot in popular culture and in the media is that Gen Z is an introverted generation. And they're kind of isolated. And I think we're seeing this in the rates of young people committing suicide. And so I think people, or young people in particular, are struggling to socialize in this ever-evolving and changing world. And I think festivals are an exception for a cohort within this generation who want to be social, who want to go out, and want to be seen by the world. And so I think festivals are now a very, very important stage for youth to come to age, or to, sorry, I'm tripping over my words, to rise up. And so I think we're starting to tap into something that's getting a little bit of resonance within the marketplace. So one of the things I want to back up and talk about for a second is, why are our festivals important in this day and age? And I would say that digital music with streaming and piracy and iTunes going way back, it really destroyed the old business models of music distribution. And so no longer can you just put an album out and make the money the way that you used to. And that's been true for a very long time. And so I think now for quite some time, the music industry has adapted by monetizing experiences. And so I think festivals are basically a driver for a lot of this monetization. So with that in mind, I want to kind of take a step back and think about historically, where does this fit in, I guess, like the zeitgeist or the popular imagination. And I would say that every generation is defined by their mode of social expression and how they socialize. And so if I think back about the history of dating, I think a lot of these things are kind of defined generationally by what technologies were rising up. Phone calls, cruising, making mixtapes. There's that iconic image of the kids standing outside of a girl's house holding up a boom box. And these are, I think, stories we tell ourselves about how we relate to each other. And so I would say that all these different moments in the last, say, 100 years are very much technological changes within society. But I think that music and dancing is an intrinsic human behavior and is very important to how we socialize. And I would say, and I've heard people tell me that music may even predate language. And that back in the day, even before we knew how to communicate, we were banging on a drum and probably dancing around campfires. And so, again, with this very, very brief history lesson, I wouldn't call it a lesson, but I think that concerts and visuals have been going hand in hand for some time. Well, we've seen this transition from analog to digital, with LED panels and big crazy staging. But I think that we're moving and transitioning into a new era where XR is poised to become this next moment in time. And I don't think it'll be the only moment in time, but I think this is really setting the stage for a couple of decades of very, very interesting creative expression. So if we think about trends within society and thinking about boomers in a post-war era, going into the suburbs, cars became so core to that experience. Millennials were defined by that re-urbanization and being hipsters back in the cities. So I'm really questioning and trying to wrap my head around what is it the next generation wants? What is the next generation going to come of age, understanding about the world around them? And so I've been trying to wrap my head around younger people and going through a rebellious stage where they're defining who their personalities are and doing that in isolation. Are they going to be doing that in VR? Or are they going to be getting out there in the world and finding other ways of socializing and expressing themselves? And so I think festivals really do represent a collective movement that is this escapist environment that's big enough to drown out all the crazy things that are happening in the world right now. So I would say as the next couple generations of technology start to mature, we're going to see a leap forward where the digital age leaves the 2D screen and starts to inhabit the physical world, whether that's IoT devices, wearables, or other more modes of communication that may be much more subtle, like algorithms and AI driving traffic signals and things like that. And so I think understanding and communicating to a younger audience is going to be very critical to getting ahead of the curve on adoption. So trends I had to basically put all this type up here so I just remember my notes. Trends in behavior will only become apparent as Gen Z and Gen Y settle into predictable patterns and internalize these new technologies. So I think these patterns haven't been formed yet. And young people are going to be growing up and trying to understand this stuff. And if we think about this numbers game, there's a lot of people out there who are going to be solving these UX problems for us, just by collectively doing all the things. But I think that if we wait for trends to present themselves, you're already going to be behind the curve. So I think festivals and music in general offer a unique moment where fans can experience and form new attachments to each other, new attachments to technologies, and I think really become who they are in an ever-changing technological world. And so I think that any companies that are waiting for these behaviors to become locked in enough that you can track them, it may be already too late, and you're risking increased acquisition costs and other things that when we look at big changes in technology, a lot of companies don't necessarily make that transition very well from one generation to the next. So I think this is about relevance, and as we've been really analyzing and thinking about what kind of experiences can we bring to places like Coachella, we've been getting a lot of pitches on different types of new technologies that don't always make sense at scale. And so I think this is really about trying to find a fundamental human experience that people will latch onto. And I think once you find that, you'll find the adoption, you'll find the scale. And so for the Fortnite experience, we had north of 4 million users within 2 weeks, unique users. And so I think this really is a shot across the bow for emerging technologies that don't have a community and launch without a home. So I think this is where I want to bring this around to being a love story. And I think that the technology won't really have matured until we change the dating game, essentially. Until people start to communicate with each other through these technologies and form relationships, I think only then will we start to be getting somewhere. So in conclusion, I think new technologies need to be a love story where young people can fall in love, grow old together, and then tell their kids about what it was like in their day. You know, back in the cool old days when they used to go to festivals or do Here, when I was younger, it was stories about driving in cars and cruising and things like that. And of course, texting and social media have changed the game. And I think it's time that we change the game again. So I think no good story is really complete without a little plot twist. So part of the work that we've been doing to scale up the AR program is looking at how do we introduce tools into the process. So a lot of the XR work that we're doing is very high touch and very, very expensive. So we've been developing a new tool that does 3D rendering specifically for audio visualization and different creative applications. And so I think with this new generation of technology, we're looking at how do we properly support and scale to support something as big as a music festival. And so I think this is, for me, a passion project, but something I think is going to be very critical for us to scale into offering something big enough to be able to provide a canvas for 100 artists at a music festival. So if we create an infrastructure layer with our broadcast television pipeline, then how do we then get 100 different artists using this? And we certainly can't be doing that heavy lift every time with every artist. So this is something I'm super excited to share with you guys. So this is brand new, and I've been kind of nervous about putting this out into the world, but I'm very excited to bring this to you guys now. So essentially the concept is that there's a lot of inputs that you can put into modern day real-time rendering pipelines like Unity or Unreal, and that there's a bit of a gap in modern, or I wouldn't say modern, but current industry standard softwares for music visualization. And so if you think about a concert, it is pretty long format. Currently, a lot of the content that we've been creating is just 1 or 2 songs with AR content, because it's just such a heavy lift to do that. So we're thinking about how do we have 16 hours worth of content every day for 3 days of a festival. And so this is one of the solutions we're looking at to deploy tools into the creative marketplace to allow them to visualize and create their own content. And then something like a festival can provide the infrastructure needed. And this is really intended to be future-proof enough so that it can do 2D, but then scale up for the broadcast AR we're doing, and then also deploy it to any kind of device for hopefully that magical day when people start to show up to concerts and festivals wearing glasses on their face already. And this content will jump out at them and give them a truly unique, immersive concert-going experience. Cool. So I think I actually finished ahead of time. I tried to rush through it because I thought this was going to go over. But yeah, I think we can open up to questions now.
And if you have questions, you can come to the mic, or I will run to you if you're too far.
Hi. Transformational producer. I've been doing this for quite a while, and I just want to say thank you. Cool. And doing festivals around the world. I focus on ed tech. And so I think event production and where you're at in education has a place. So are you currently focused on any area of this performance art in schools?
Not currently. One of the things I love about music is that it's short format. And so you can very quickly iterate on concepts. And so that's been the primary focus. But if you have ideas or thoughts, I'd be certainly happy to connect afterwards.
Any other questions?
So my focus of work is on mapping virtual worlds. So do you guys have any work in that area as far as avatar 3D worlds or VR worlds?
That's a great question. In the avatar space, we've been looking at a lot of different solutions and options. We've been doing some work in the Web3 crypto space and trying to look at how you could have an interoperable avatar. But as far as like mapping worlds, not specifically. But I am interested in architecture and city planning. So if you want to chat, let me know. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.